Today in history. It is July 2nd, and today actually is the midpoint of a common year.
We're officially halfway through today, right? Okay, so it's the day right in the middle of the year. So there's 182 days before and 182 more days after.
딱 반 왔네요. midpoint 온 거네요.
We are on the equator of the calendar year.
That's right. 그래서 시간상 적도에 온 거네요.
Right.
자, 그렇다면 오늘 또 역시 I wonder what really happened today in history. So let's give our listener a quick quiz.
We have 3 events, actually, to share with our listeners today. But first, as Santini mentioned, the quiz question. A popular acronym, UFO, stands for, number 1, useful fried oysters, or number 2, unidentified flying object. The question again. A popular acronym, UFO, stands for, number 1, useful fried oysters, or number 2, unidentified flying object. If you happen to know the answer, you can put it on our Bandi board right now or text in #1045 on your cell phone for 51. You could win an usan.
That sounds funny. Have you ever seen or do you believe in useful fried oysters?
I
Why
think
not?
Every fried oyster is useful
yes.
because it goes in my belly.
Okay, so we are going to be talking about 3 different items, and here they are.
Today in history. In 1900, the first Zeppelin flight took place. In 1904, Jean Rene Lacoste was born. And in 1997, Men in Black was released.
All kinds of things. Okay, today's journey begins in the way back in the early 20th century when the first flight of the aircraft known as Zeppelin took place.
That's right. It was in 1900 when this German aircraft had its maiden flight, opening new doors to air transportation.
1900년입니다. 바로 오늘이죠. 7월 2일 이 비행 교통의 새 장을 연 그런 독일의 비행선 지금 Zeppelin 말씀드리고 있는데요. And for the first quarter of the century, the Zeppelin became the answer to long distance travel, becoming the trademark aircraft for the world's first airline in service.
That's right. Now, in fact, some of the early skyscrapers, such as the Empire State Building, originally were designed to have antennas that could allow the docking of Zeppelins and other similar aircraft.
네, 지금 제플린에 대해서 그 사진을 보여드리고 있습니다. 보이는 라디오를 보시게 되면 우측, 네, 저기 보이네요. 요즘 광고로도 많이 쓰이고 있지 않나요? 저렇게 that's used for commercial use.
We see we call those blimps.
그렇죠?
These days, like if you see the picture on the right side,
Right,
you'll
the
see it.
Goodyear thing.
Yeah, you'll see it above a sports stadium,
yes.
something like that.
네.
Yeah. Well, that one on the right is called the Goodyear blimp.
blim프라고도 부르는군요, 요즘은. Okay, well, although not in commercial service anymore, the Zeppelin has been the inspiration for many musicians and movies, especially for alternate history fiction, as it was the case with 2004, the movie Sky Captain and the World of Tomorrow.
But we can still see similar aircraft flying through the skies, but a lot smaller in size and without a rigid frame, relying on gases like helium to lift off, and they are used these days for advertisement and special tourist attractions. And again, that's the picture that we were looking at just a moment ago.
네, 요즘에는 광고라든지 어떤 특정 행사를 알리기 위해서 이렇게 뭐 풍선 띄우는 것처럼 비행선을 띄우게 되는데 이제 그런 용도로 보통 많이 쓰게 되죠. 원래는 Zeppelin이라고 불리우지만 요즘은 Blimp라고 많이들 알려져 있습니다.
Yeah, it's a unique way of advertising these days. They often have, of course, you can see the advertisement on the side of the blimp, but often they have screens on them as well,
Right.
where they'll run messages, and it's a very creative way to advertise to a large number of people.
Costs a lot of money, I
I'm
believe.
sure it probably does, yeah.
네.
All right,
All
let's move on now to the world of fashion.
So let's go to a couple of years later when a tennis player was born in 1904 and who would later become a milestone in the sports and fashion industry.
Yeah, I pronounced his name before as Jean, but of course a French name would be pronounced Jean, right? Jean Rene Lacoste, a French tennis player and businessman who was known as the Crocodile for his tenacity in the court. There's a
That's right.
picture of him on 보이는 라디오.
네, 우리 잘 알려진 그런 브랜드이기도 하죠. 그 악어 모양의. 자, 프랑스 테니스 선수인 Jean Rene Lacoste 이렇게 알려지기도 했고요. 자, 그 코트에서 보여준 그의 그 끈기로 인해서 악어라는 별명으로도 유명합니다. And he was the number one tennis player in the world for both 1926 and 1927, and is considered now as one of the greatest players of all time.
That's interesting. I knew about the brand of the clothing and things, but I didn't know that he was a tennis player. I never heard that before. Interesting. Now, he was very, very successful in his career, and among his many achievements, there are two things that we should all be thankful for. First is the tennis racket, which took a dramatic change through Lacoste's tubular steel design. Prior to his creation, tennis rackets were still made of wood.
그 이분으로 인해서 테니스 라켓이 이제 그 철제관으로 바뀌게 됐군요. And you know what? The second creation is none other than the polo shirt, a must-have item in most closets and one that has become stable with casual wear.
Really interesting, right?
None of us actually is wearing that this morning, but
Everybody has one.
네, 그렇죠.
Right.
많이들 가지고 있죠.
Golfers and tennis players and people who go to the beach. And yeah, it's such a useful piece of clothing. I didn't know that Lacoste created it. All right, now let's go from fashion to movies. When we jump into the late 1990s, or we step into the late 1990s, when a new chapter in science fiction movies was opened.
Right, and today in 1997, the movie Men in Black premiered, becoming a global box office hit and becoming a new standard for SF comedy.
Right. It also served to cement Will Smith's global fame. The movie was based on the comic book of the same name, and its success was the inspiration for Marvel to come up with the movie adaptations such as Spider-Man.
Ah, really? Oh, 자, and now coincidentally, today is also World UFO Day, and first established in 2001, a day that is meant to raise awareness for people to gather together and watch the skies for unidentified flying objects, or UFO, 미확인 비행 물체.
I've never heard of World UFO Day.
World UFO Day.
Have you ever seen one?
No, I don't think I have. Have you?
I don't think so. Do you believe in them? When you think about Roswell and all the stories from New Mexico,
I
things
think
like
there's a possibility that
Yep.
it might exist in some outer space, somewhere in outer space.
Yeah, I think it's a little naive to think that we are the only
Right.
living beings in the galaxy. So
never
yeah.
say never.
Yeah, there's another Boyoung out there somewhere. Hosting
그건 이제-
hosting the intergalactic morning special.
This is Morning Special. Okay. All right. So that's it for today's history. And before we wrap up, here's the answer to your quiz question.
Right. The quiz question was a popular acronym UFO stands for, and the answer number 2, unidentified flying object. Okay, we'll be right back, and it will be time to talk barbecue. Here's Will Smith, Men in Black.